Snorlax. Temporospatial Claudications, use and abuse. Say bye to Yaya.
Bye, Yaya.
Good night.
The week went by quickly for Nita. Though Carl had made the business of opening a world gate sound fairly simple, she began to suspect that he'd been doing it so long that it actually seemed that way to him. It wasn't simple, as her book told her as soon as she opened to the pertinent chapter, which was 40 pages long in small print. Grand Central World Gate had its own special requirements, specific supplies and objects that had to be present at an opening so that space would be properly bent, spells that had to be learned just so. The phone calls flew between Nita's house and Kit's for a couple of days, and there was a lot of visiting back and forth as they divided up the work. Nita spent a lot of time keeping Fred from being noticed by her family, and also got to see a lot of Kit's mother and father and sisters, all of whom were very friendly and kept forgetting that Nita couldn't speak Spanish. She started to learn a little of it in self-defense. Kit's dog told her the brand of dog biscuits it could never get enough of. She began bringing them with her when she visited. The dog spoke the speech with a Spanish accent and would constantly interrupt Kit and Nita as they discussed who should do what in the spelling. Kit wound up with most of the spoken work, since he had been using the speech longer and was better at it. Nita picked up supplies. "You ever swallow anything accidentally before, Fred?" Nita said under her breath. It was late Friday afternoon, and she was in a little antiques and junk store on Nassau Road, going through boxes of dusty odds and ends in search of a real silver fork. Fred was hanging over her shoulder, almost invisible, a faint red point lazily emitting heat. "Not for a long time," he said, glancing curiously at a pressed glass salt shaker Nita was holding. "Not since I was a black hole, certainly. Black holes swallow everything, but a white hole's business is emission, within limits," he added, and the air around him rippled with heat as he shuddered. "I don't ever want to emit the way I did after your pen went down. Some of those things hurt on the way out. And anyway, all that emission makes me nervous. Too much of that kind of thing, and I could blow my quanta." She looked at him worried. "Really? Have you emitted that much stuff that you're in danger of blowing up?" "Oh, not really. I'd have to lose a lot more mass first. After all, before I was a black hole, I was a respectable-sized blue-white star, and even those days I massed a few 100,000 times what your cute little yellow dwarf sun does. I wouldn't worry about it. I'm nowhere near the critical threshold yet." "Cute?" Nita said. "Well, it is. And I suppose there's no harm in getting better at emissions. I have been improving a lot. What's that?" Nita looked farther down in the box, dug deep, and came up with a battered old fork. It was scratched and its tines were bent out of shape, but it was definitely silver, not stainless steel. "That's what I needed," she said. "Thanks, Fred. Now all I need is that piece of rowan wood, and then tonight I go over my part of the spells again." "You sound worried." "Well, yeah, a little," Nita said, getting up. All that week her ability to hear what the plants were saying had been getting stronger and surer. The better she got with the speech, the more sense the bushes and trees made. "It's just the rowan branch has to come off a live tree, Fred, and I can't just pick it. That'd be like walking up to someone and pulling one of their fingers off. I have to ask for it, and if the tree won't give it to me, then you don't get your pen back, at least not for a while." Fred shimmered with colors and a feeling like a sigh. "I am a trouble to you." "Fred, no. Put your light out a moment so we can get out of here." Nita interrupted the shopkeeper's intense concentration on a Gothic novel long enough to find out what the fork cost. $1, and buy it. A few steps outside the door, Fred was pacing her again.
So he didn't know it was actual silver?
Or he didn't care. A few steps outside the door, Fred was pacing her again. "If you're trouble, you're the best trouble that's happened around here for a while. You're good to talk to, you're good company, when you don't forget and start emitting cosmic rays." Fred blazed momentarily, blushing at Nita's teasing. In an excited moment the night before, he had forgotten himself and had emitted a brief blast of ultra-short-wave radiation, which had heated up Nita's backyard a good deal, ionized the air for miles around, and produced a local but brilliant aurora. "Well, it's an old habit, and old habits die hard. I'm working on it. Heat we don't mind so much, or ultraviolet, the long-wave kind that doesn't hurt people's eyes." "You fluoresce when I use that, though." Nita laughed. "I don't mind fluorescing. Though on second thought, don't do that where anyone but Kit can see. I doubt my mother'd understand. They walked home together, chatting alternately about life in the suburbs and life in a part of deep space close to the Great Galactic Rift.
What's a Great Galactic Rift?
I bet it's where Fred's from. Nita felt more relaxed than she had for months. Joanne had been out of sight since Monday afternoon at Tom and Carl's. Even if she hadn't, Nita had been practicing with that body shield, so that now she could run through the syllables of the spell in a matter of seconds, and nothing short of a bomb dropped on her could hurt her. She could even extend the spell to cover someone else, though it wasn't quite so effective. She had a harder time convincing the air to harden up, but even that lessened protection would come in handy if she and Kit should be in trouble together at some point, and there was no time to cooperate in the spelling. Not that she was expecting any more trouble. The excitement of a trip into the city was already catching at her, and this wasn't just another shopping trip. Magic was loose in the world, and she was going to help work some. She ate supper and did her homework almost without thinking about either, and as a result had to do much of the math homework twice. By the time she was finished, the sun was down and the backyard was filling with a cool blue twilight. In the front of the house, her mother and father and Doreen were watching TV as Nita walked out the side door and stood on the step, letting her eyes get used to the dimness and looking east at the rising moon. Canned laughter echoed inside the house as Fred appeared by her shoulder. "My, that's bright for something that doesn't emit heat," Fred said, looking at the moon too. "Reflected sunlight," Nita said absently. "You're going to talk to the tree now?" "Uh-huh." "Then I'll go stay with the others and watch that funny box emit. Maybe I'll figure out what it's trying to get across." "Good luck," Nita said as Fred winked out. She walked around into the backyard. Spring stars were coming out as she stood in the middle of the lawn and looked down the length of the yard at the rowan, a great round-crowned tree snowy with white flowers. Nita's stomach tightened slightly with nervousness. It had been a long time ago, according to her manual, that the trees had gone to war on mankind's behalf, against the dark powers that wanted to keep human intelligence from happening at all. The war had been a terrible one, lasting thousands of centuries, the trees and other plants taking more and more land, turning barren stone to soil that would support them and the animals and men to follow. The dark powers breaking the soil with earthquake and mountain building, scouring it with glaciers, climate changing, good ground for desert, and burning away forests in firestorms far more terrible than the small brush fires any forest needs to stay healthy. But the trees and the other plants had won at last. They had spent many more centuries readying the world for men, but when men came, they forgot the old debts and wasted the forests more terribly than even the old dark powers. Trees had no particular reason to be friendly to people these days. Nita found herself thinking of that first tree that had spoken to her, angry over the destruction of its friend's artwork. Even though the rowan tree had always been well tended, she wasn't certain how it was going to respond to her. With the other ash trees, rowans had been in the forefront of the battle, and they had long memories. Nita sighed and sat down under the tree, book in hand, her back against its trunk. There was no need to start right away, anyhow. She needed a little while to recover from her homework. The stars looked at her through the rowan's wind-stirred branches, getting brighter by the minute. There was that one pair of stars that always looked like eyes. They were so close together. It was one of the 3 little pairs associated with the Big Dipper. The leaps of the gazelle, the ancient Arabs had called them, seeing them as 3 sets of hoofprints left in the sky. Qasat al-Thiba, Nita muttered, the old Arabic name. Her eyes wandered down toward the horizon, finding a faint reddish gleam. Regulus, and a wider gleam higher. Arcturus, and another, and another. Old friends with new names in the speech that she spoke silently, remembering Carl's warning. Elfanthe, or Sanahel. The distant fires flickered among shadowy leaves. Lahayurin, and Methkane, and Yisen, and Kahadwe, and Roggles Hill. They are nice tonight. Nita looked up hurriedly. The tree above her was leaning back comfortably on its roots, finished with the stretching upward of growth for the day, and gazing at the stars as she was. "I was hoping that haze would clear off," it said as silently as Nita had spoken, in a slow, relaxed drawl. "This will be a good night for talking to the wind, and other such transient creatures. I was wondering when you were going to come out and pay your respects, Wizardling." Ah, Nita was reassured. The rowan sounded friendly. It's been a busy week. You never used to be too busy for me, the rowan said, its whispering voice sounding ever so slightly wounded. Always up in my branches you were, and falling out of them, or swinging. But I suppose you outgrew me. Nita sat quiet for a moment, remembering how it had been when she was littler. She would swing for hours on end, talking to herself, pretending all kinds of things, talking to the tree and the world in general. And sometimes, "You talk back," she said in shocked realization. "You did! I wasn't making it up." "Certainly I talked. You were talking to me, after all. Don't be surprised. Small children look at things and see them, listen to things and hear them. Of course they understand the speech. Most of them never realize it any more than you did. It's when they get older and stop looking and listening that they lose the speech and we lose them." The rowan sighed, many leaves showing pale undersides as the wind moved them. "None of us are ever happy about losing our children. But every now and then we get one of you back." All that in the book was true then, Nita said, about the battle of the trees. Certainly. Wasn't it written in the book of Night with Moon that this world's life would become free to roam among our friends there? The rowan stretched upward, turning toward the turning stars for a moment. If we helped? After the world was green and ready, we waited for a long time. We started letting all sorts of strange creatures live in our branches after they came up out of the water. We watched them all. We never knew which of our guests would be the children we were promised. And then, all of a sudden, one odd-looking group of creatures went down out of our branches and looked upward and called us by name in the speech. Your kind. The tree looked down musingly at Nita. "You're still an odd-looking lot," it said. Nita sat against the rowan and
I guess all the creatures are odd looking to other creatures.
Probably. Nita sat against the rowan and felt unhappy. "We weren't so kind to you," she said, "and if it weren't for the plants, we wouldn't be here." "Don't be downcast, wizardling," the tree said, gazing up at the sky again. "It isn't your fault. And in any case, we knew what fate was in store for us. It was written in the book." "Wait a minute. You mean you knew we were going to start destroying your kind and you got the world ready for us anyway?" "How could we do otherwise? You are our children." "But we make houses out of you. Nita looked guiltily at the book she was holding. "We kill you and we write on your bodies." The rowan continued to gaze up at the night sky. "Well," it said, "we are all in the book together after all. Don't you think that we wrote enough in the rock and the soil in our day? And we still do. We have our own lives, our own feelings and goals. Some of them you may learn by your wizardry, but I doubt you'll ever come to know them all. We do what we have to live. Sometimes that means breaking a rock's heart, or pushing roots down into ground that screams against the intrusion. But we never forget what we're doing. As for you," and its voice became very gentle, "how else should our children..." "How else should our children climb to the stars? But up our branches. We made our peace with that fact a long time ago, that we would be used and maybe forgotten. So be it. What you learn in your climbing will make all the life on this planet greater, more precious. You have your own stories to write, and when it comes to that, who writes the things written in your body, your life, and who reads?" It breathed out, a long sigh of leaves in the wind. "Our cases aren't that much different." Nita sat back and tried to absorb what the tree was saying. "The Book of Night with Moon," she said after a while. "Do you know who wrote it?" The rowan was silent for a time. "None of us are sure," it said at last. "Our legends say it wasn't written. It's simply been as long as life has been, since there were kindled, and before it gazed upward at the stars. Then the other book, the dark one. The whole tree shuddered. That one was written, they say. The Rowan's voice dropped to a whisper. By the lone power, the witherer, the one who blights, the kindler of wildfires. Don't ask more. Even talking about that one or its works can lend it power. Nita sat quietly for a while, thinking. You came to ask something, the Rowan said. Wizards are always asking things of Rowans. Ah, yes. Don't worry about it, the Rowan said. When we decided to be trees of the light, we knew we were going to be in demand. Well, I need some live wood. Just enough for a stick, a little wand. We're going to open the Grand Central World Gate tomorrow morning. Above Nita's head there was a sharp cracking sound. She pressed back against the trunk, and a short, straight branch about 1.5 feet long bounced to the grass in front of her. The moon is almost full tonight, the Rowan said. If I were you, I'd peel the leaves and bark off that twig and leave it out to soak up the moonlight. I don't think it'll hurt the wood's usefulness for your spelling, and it may make it more valuable later on. Thank you. Yes, Nita said. The book had mentioned something of the sort. A Rowan rod with a night's moonlight in it could be used for some kind of defense. She would look up the reference later. I guess I should go in and check my spells over one more time. I'm awfully new at this. Go on, the tree said with affection. Nita picked up the stick that the Rowan had dropped for her, got up and stretched, looking up at the stars through the branches. On impulse, she reached up, hooked an arm around the branch that had had the swing on it. I guess I could still come and climb sometimes, she said. She felt the tree looking at her. My name in the speech is Lucid, it said in leaf rustle and star flicker. If there's need, remember me to the trees in Manhattan. You won't be without help if you need it. I'm Nita, she said in the speech, aloud for this once. The syllables didn't sound strange. They sounded like a native tongue and made English feel like a foreign tongue. For a moment, every leaf on the tree quivered with her name, speaking it in a whispery echo. Go, the Rowan said again. Rest well. It turned its calm regard to the stars again. Nita went back inside.